Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking at just a hugely important document. It's President John F. Kennedy's Civil Rights Address from June 1963.
Delivered to a very, very tense country.
Right, and this wasn't just some policy speech. It felt like a moral reckoning delivered almost out of the blue. So our mission here is to take that original transcript and really distill it.
To understand the arguments, the context, and, this powerful moral call that really did change the national conversation.
And that context, it's everything. You can't understand the speech without it.
Not at all. I mean, Kennedy goes on the air right after that confrontation with Governor George Wallace.
At the University of Alabama.
Exactly. Wallace was trying to physically block two black students from registering. The whole thing required Kennedy to call in the Alabama National Guard to enforce a court order.
So it wasn't a debate anymore, it was a standoff.
It was, and the president had to respond. He needed to get these two, as he said, clearly qualified young Alabama residents who happened to have been born Negro into their state university.
And that crisis, that visual, it allows him to just cut through all the noise and get to the core principle of the whole thing.
He does. He says, look, this nation was founded on the idea that all men are created equal. It's right there.
Yeah.
And then he says, and this is the line, the rights of every man are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened.
Which immediately elevates it. It's not a Southern problem anymore.
No, it's an American problem, a fundamental moral test for the whole country.
And from that moral foundation, he then does something he was so good at. He connects it to the global stage, to the Cold War.
He does. It's a classic Kennedy move. He basically asks, how can we be the leaders of the free world if we don't have freedom at home?
He brings up Vietnam, West Berlin.
Yes. He says when we send young men to fight and die in those places, we do not ask for whites only.
That's such a powerful point.
Yeah.
If you're asking people of all colors to die for freedom abroad, how can you possibly justify denying them basic freedom at home?
You can't. And he uses that to pivot to what daily life should look like for every American.
Right. He lays out these three basic demands that shouldn't be controversial. First, any student should be able to go to any public school without needing troops to escort them.
Simple enough. Second, anyone should be able to get equal service in public places, hotels, restaurants, stores, without having to stage a demonstration.
Which was happening everywhere with the sit-ins and protests.
Everywhere. And third, and this is maybe the most fundamental,
Voting.
the right to register and vote freely without being intimidated or fearing for your safety.
So education, commerce, and the ballot box. It's the whole package of citizenship.
It is. And he knew he had to make it simple, so he boils it all down to this one incredible line. He says, every American should have the right to be treated as one would wish his children to be treated.
That's a gut punch. It forces every parent listening to see it through a different lens.
Absolutely. But then he backs up that moral plea with just cold, hard facts. He wants to show this isn't just a feeling, it's a statistical reality.
And he's very clear this is not just a Southern issue. He says the rising tide of discontent is everywhere because the injustice is everywhere.
This is where it gets really specific and, frankly, pretty shocking for a 1963 audience. He asks them to imagine two babies born on the same day in the same hospital, one white, one black.
And then he just lists the differences in their life chances.
Yeah.
It's devastating. Let's go through them. The black baby has half the chance of finishing high school.
Just half. And it gets steeper, only 1/3 the chance of completing college.
So the door to opportunity is already closing.
And then comes the economic reality, twice the chance of becoming unemployed.
And even if they have a job.
Their prospects of earning a decent wage, say $10,000 a year, were just 1/7 of the white babies.
1/7.
And then the final, most brutal statistic of all,
Life expectancy.
a life expectancy that is 7 years shorter. 7 years, just because of the color of their skin and all the inequities that came with it.
When you hear that 7 years, it stops being a political debate and becomes a matter of life and death.
It does, and he ties it all together with this incredibly pointed historical reference. He says, 100 years of delay have passed since President Lincoln freed the slaves, but their heirs still aren't free.
Not free from injustice and social and economic oppression.
Which brings him to a central point. After all those stats, he says, you see, this isn't just about laws. It's not a legislative issue at its core.
It's a moral issue.
It is primarily a moral issue, one that's as old as the scriptures and is as clear as the American Constitution.
And the failure to face that moral issue is what's causing the crisis. It's why cities like Birmingham are exploding. The fires of frustration and discord, as he calls them.
Exactly. People are in the streets because the system has failed them, and he's very clear about the wrong way to handle it.
He says you can't solve this with repressive police action.
Right. And you can't quiet it with token moves or talk. The time for that is over. He says now is the time to act.
In Congress, in state legislatures,
And
and
just importantly, in our daily lives.
so that's the pivot. He's now moving the fight from the streets into the halls of government. He promises to go to Congress the very next week.
And to ask them to make a clear commitment that race has no place in American life or law.
He then lays out what he's going to ask for,
Yeah.
specifically. 3 big things.
The first one was maybe the most controversial. Legislation to guarantee all Americans could be served in any facility open to the public.
Hotels, restaurants, theaters, all of it.
Yes. He calls the denial of that service an arbitrary indignity. He does acknowledge that some cities, maybe 75 or so, were making voluntary progress.
But that wasn't enough.
Not nearly enough. He knew you needed a federal law to move the conflict from the streets to the courts.
Okay, what was the second request?
Education. He wanted to authorize the federal government to get more involved in lawsuits to end segregation in schools.
Because the pace of change since Brown v. Board of Education was just painfully slow.
Agonizingly slow. He makes the point that kids who entered segregated first grades 9 years earlier, right after the decision, were now about to enter segregated high schools.
Wow. An entire generation.
An entire generation losing out on a decent education, which, as he already showed with the stats, denies them a decent job.
And the third piece of legislation.
Greater protection for the right to vote. The cornerstone of it all.
And his argument for all this is, it's a moral one, but it's also practical. He says we can't tell 10% of our people that the only way to get their rights is to go out and demonstrate in the street.
Right. If you don't provide a legal path, you are essentially inviting disorder. You're complicit.
But even after laying out this whole big legislative agenda, he brings it back down to the individual.
He does. He's crystal clear that legislation cannot solve this problem alone. That's not where the real change happens.
Where does it happen?
In the homes of every American in every community. It has to be a personal, moral commitment from people.
And he frames it as a kind of two-way street, a reciprocal responsibility.
That's a great way to put it. He says the nation has a right to expect the Negro community to be responsible and obey the law, but they have a right to expect that the law will be fair, and that the Constitution will be, as Justice Harlan once said, colorblind.
So it's a mutual obligation, a social contract. So when we think about today, the legal battles are mostly won. But those statistical gaps he talked about, in income, in education, in life expectancy, many of them are still very much with us.
They are.
So the question is, what does doing nothing look like now? In a world where the laws have changed, but the reality for many haven't, what injustices might we be ignoring that risk, inviting that same shame?